As we have mentioned in weeks past, I grew up in a wonderful, large Catholic family. The second youngest of 12 was my privileged spot. I joke with my younger brother that it took my mom and dad 11 tries to get it right, and then they had one for fun. He doesn't like that so much, but that's okay. So just a lot of activity, as you can imagine, many stories. With 9 brothers and 2 sisters, and from the dinner table to always having somebody around to play a game with or outside. You know, we lived in a small house. There was only 1 bathroom, so the waiting in line often had adventures of its own. But what my dad liked to do, this was before video cameras of sorts, was every so often he decided to put out a tape recorder and kind of capture the moments of life in the Wagner household with 12 kids. And of course, one of those times was Christmas Day. So he would just set the tape recorder on the back of the couch and hit record, and who knows what it would pick up. Well, we found these tapes a number of years ago, and I played one that was from the Christmas of 1974. And my brother Keith had been born a few months earlier, and all you hear is just the tearing open of the wrapping paper and the exclamations of great joy of the kids with the gifts, and just, it was very hard to make out much of anything other than noise. But the one thing that came across very clearly was my mother's voice saying, "Watch the baby, don't step on the baby, watch the baby." And I'm listening going, somebody pick up the baby. So, adventures, yes, we had. My family was also very involved and active in the pro-life movement. And abortion had been legal in the United States 3 years, in the year 1976. And my parents felt called to attend the National March for Life in Washington, D.C. that year. And my mom was 7 months pregnant, but felt very much the need to go. So she and my dad kind of, you know, found spots for all of us to spend the night, and they boarded the Bluebird bus, perhaps here in St. George parking lot, I'm not sure. And a few hours into the night, just south of Pittsburgh, my mother died peacefully in her sleep, and the little baby that she was carrying also died. And so, my dear father returned home, and I'll never forget seeing him when he came into my grandparents' house. He looked much older to me, and you know, I was 5, what did I know? But he looked so alone, and yet I remember vividly just a real sense of this, I would call it now, grace about him, around him. And so here is this man, having lost the love of his life and his preborn son, facing what seemed an insurmountable life ahead, to raise 12 children by himself, ages 3 to 17, and listening to all the voices around him saying, you know, maybe you should divide up the kids among relatives, you know that people would help, or, you know, this might just be too much and push you over the edge, and, you know, think of the kids and what would be best for them. And he did. And he taught us the lessons of life that no money could possibly buy. He never made much money. In that year, I think my oldest brother told me that the income tax, because he was applying for colleges and financial aid, wasn't even $20,000, and yet he was able to put all of us through Catholic school and remained faithful. He trusted and trusted and trusted amidst these crazy circumstances, and not only believed but lived that whatever God called him to, that same good and gracious God would provide for. So many kids, so many needs, but a great and loving Almighty Father that I'm sure he constantly turned to. You know, whenever I hear the scripture passage, no greater love than this has a man than to lay down his life for his friends. You know, my dad, I hear that and I think of him and how he truly laid down his life for each of his children, put everything aside, poured himself out continually to raise us and to do the best that he could with what he had. He showed us that there's the great mystery that giving of yourself like that brings a joy that is unexplainable. You know, he was never able to provide new clothes, but the second and third hand-me-downs and downs, right, Paul? And, you know, we didn't get to go on these big trips or have anything fancy, but what he was able to give us was amazing. The faith, the perseverance, the love, again, the trust beyond all circumstances that he showed us and lived every day of his life. The Christmases that followed were very interesting, you know. The excitement of opening up a can of Pringles or a thing of Lifesavers or a blank tablet with sharp crayons, those are the best, by the way. But the love, you know, I think back on those Christmases and then reflecting on the Christmas story here of, you know, the baby, the newborn infant king wrapped in swaddling clothes. Swaddling clothes isn't much of a wrapping, but the gift inside. Our presents were often wrapped in white tissue paper and newspapers, but the gift inside was a great gift of love that we knew came from the heart of God, shown through the heart of my dad. You know, the world might look at this and think, you know, that's happiness, that's joy, it's all about me, it's all about what I can get, what pleasure I can get, when I can get it immediately. But God's plan for joy is so different, and we were privileged, my brothers and sisters and I, to experience that through my father. I'd like you to take a moment and think of your favorite Christmas carol. You can even hum it if you'd like. You know, you hear different carols on the radio or, you know, in the stores starting back at Thanksgiving or, you know, while you're waiting on hold. And, you know, the words that are pronounced are joy and, you know, this sense of warmth and happiness and majesty and celebration. And yet if you think about that very first Christmas, gosh, Mary and Joseph, you know, they would be traveling to Bethlehem. Christmas is just 3 days away, only to find no room in the inn. We know the story, but do we really think about the story? So Mary finds Joseph finds for Mary the stable. Christ, the Son of God, is born amidst animals in a smelly stable, wrapped in swaddling clothes, placed in a wooden manger, not with comfy blankets or anything like that. This new father and teenage mother are then, you know, met by strangers who visit them, and then they're told that they need to flee to save this baby's life. No friends, no work, no money, strangers in a strange land, and yet they trusted beyond all circumstances, and there God dwelled in their midst. To the world's eyes, they had nothing, yet they knew they had everything, for Jesus laid in his mother's arms. How beautiful. The great love and sacrifice that they gave. There God dwelled. Again, the mystery of the great joy and dignity of sacrifice. No matter what your circumstances are this night, no matter what you may be dreading in the days ahead, whether it's meeting with family that there might be some tensions with, or perhaps some of you are out of work, or struggling in your marriages, or somebody dying, or whatever it is, trusting beyond all circumstances that it's not about the presence, as we have been saying over and over again, and you know, but it's about the presence, that in the midst of it all, God is with us, Emmanuel. So I leave with you this night the challenge, so to speak, or perhaps more appropriately, the invitation not to get caught up in the chaos around the tearing open the presents or the preparations and the cookie baking and the work that may need to be done, and leave the baby there lying on the floor, not to be stepped on, not to be ignored. But I invite you to pick him up and hold him close to your heart this Christmas and know that he is forever with you. His presence is there. He desires us so much to be close to him. Thank you.